Hello world, I'm Del Hussein and this is the Wow Mind. We live our lives like life will last forever, but what happens when a regular checkup to the doctors tells us that's far from the truth? In this episode of the Wow Mind, I speak with Joe Amin about how a motorbike has come to symbolise positivity, hope, and a new beginning following ill health. This particular episode is called It's Not About the Bike. Because, Joe, you've just bought the most amazing motorbike. What is it? What is it that you bought, this kind of Black Panther looking...
What I've bought, yes.
Superhero gadget?
I've bought... It's a Honda. Right. It's not a Harley. I will tell everyone that. It's a Honda Rebel 500S, and the S stands for Special Edition. So this is the blacked out matte black, God knows if anyone saw me in the middle of the night, they probably wouldn't be able to see me, and I'll probably get run over on it. But the point is, it looks. As you say, it's the Black Panther.
It's the nut
off bike. Yeah. It's a cruiser. It's a classic looking thing, and I must admit, God, the number of new friends I've made at places like the Ace Cafe on the North Circular and the Epping Forest Bikers Cafe, and I think I've been down to the Bike Hut as well in Shoreditch. And just made friends, and now I'm part of a whole new social group, which you never expect would happen in London anyway. But there you go.
Yeah. And that's been happening through Corona, hasn't it? Through COVID time.
It has. I guess you can't get much more social distance than with a bunch of bikers, each on a bike with crash helmets on.
Yeah.
Riding at sort of like 60, 70 miles an hour. So yeah, I mean, I suppose you're sort of naturally social distanced anyway. Put it that way.
Well, you ended up buying the bike really because of a series of things, really. But when you just tell us about that, what happened?
Okay, well, I suppose my story really goes back sort of 3 years to about 2017. It was actually the year I was turning 50, and massive plans. Huge plans for the big 5-0. I'd been the sort of guy that never really celebrated milestones in life, turning 16, 21, 30, 40, all that stuff. It wasn't that big a deal to me, I'll be honest with you. I've always been the kind of shy, retiring person that's never promoted myself or never felt it was the kind of thing that I ever wanted to do. Very non-committal. But that was it. Anyway, my birthday's in September. But at the start of the year, I started... I suppose the story is I was being screened for prostate cancer because of family history, and I'd been screened pretty much through my 40s for that. Now, this year, my screening sort of revealed a bit of an issue. My GP, that year, he screened me. He suggested I go to hospital for some further tests and everything. So within a few weeks, I was at UCLH. I was having all sorts of scans, MRIs being done, bone scans, all sorts of things, PET scans and everything. And it revealed that I think my prostate had probably had a bit of an eruption of cancer. It wasn't smooth. And I would say to all the guys listening, come on, guys, finger up the backside, it's worth it. I tell you, it's such a simple test, and it will save your life. It really will. People do die of prostate cancer if it's left alone. But anyway, the point is that it turned out, because of my family history, my prostate cancer had developed. It had become quite aggressive, and they needed to do something pretty damn quick. As it had actually escaped the prostate itself. Sorry, this is all sounding a bit too graphic. But anyway, so before I knew it, I was actually in hospital, admitted to hospital. Probably this is all probably happened within about a month or something. So it's a massive sort of big up to the NHS. It's got to be said. So within a month, I was in hospital having a prostatectomy. It's something called the Da Vinci robot. It's actually a robotic procedure that's performed.
And what happens in that? What is it?
It's exactly that. It's a sort of, I guess it's yes. There's certainly a surgeon. There's a surgical team involved, but the actual procedure to remove your prostate is actually performed by a robot. That is obviously guided by a surgeon in the surgical team, and it's essentially keyhole surgery. So when you wake up after the surgery, you've got something like 7 or 8 holes in your abdomen, where various tubes and instruments and all sorts of things have been inserted into you. So you wake up sort of like I think my surgery ran into about 5 or 6 hours. Came out of it. And saw the doctor the next day, and they sort of explained what they had to do. They had to sort of get the prostate out, and then get a load of the tissue out as well, because there'd been a bit of a spread of the cancer. So it took a bit longer, and there was then all the recuperation, recovery from the treatment, from the surgery, I should say in this case, or all the drugs I was taking to sort of heal from that. So essentially since 2017, I've been in that sort of recuperation mode, recovery, trying to get some my sort of normal bodily functions sort of going again, and basically. What it had done, and I think it was the guys sort of meeting up with you guys. I think the silver lining you could draw out of that is that now that you're on the radar, the NHS radar, I'm going to be screened on a regular basis, and if anything changes, we'll find out very quickly. So yeah,
How? I mean, that's quite a huge trauma, really, but. The moment your GP told you, I mean, you obviously had a test, and the GP said, "Look, Joe, we've had this result, and this is what it is." What was the feeling? What was the immediate gut instinct?
I mean, the feeling is it's not real. What you're being told by medical people and doctors is you're not well, but you're sort of thinking I am well. I feel normal. I eat everything. I'm active. It doesn't seem real, and I must admit it probably took a lot of the tests and biopsies that I had done for an oncologist to sit down in front of me and my wife as well and actually tell me I had cancer. And I think that was probably the first time, I think that's probably after about 4 weeks of testing and everything, that somebody actually, the penny dropped that I was ill. And something had to be done about it, which wasn't just take a paracetamol. They had to do something. So it took a long time for me to even think there was anything wrong. I honestly thought I had a couple of pills and I'd be fine. So that was probably when it first got real. But then you know what happened?
And this was in
2017.
17.
Yeah, 2017.
So at that point, did they say to you, "Okay, Mr. Amin, this is what we're going to do"? Was it kind of like laid out? Was it very kind of efficient? How did you feel about the fact that there was a methodology to the control of what's going to happen next? Follow these steps, or was it more, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. It'll depend on how you react, or how was that?
No, you're absolutely right. There was a process. There was a very laid out plan for me, a treatment plan, which included the surgery and everything. And in some respects, it felt reassuring. I'm a project manager by profession. So for me, having a plan was very important. If they had turned around and said, well, we'll come try this and try that and see how things, see what falls out, then it would have been worrying. And it's interesting, you don't have time to dwell on the news you've just been given that you're sick, you've got cancer. You're suddenly thrust into this process, and you've got to very quickly get your head around it because they move quickly. There's no sort of hanging around or anything like that. They move very quickly, and before you know it, you're in hospital having surgery. So no, your mind, your fears, any opportunity to sort of process that information is sort of, I suppose it doesn't really hit you or sink in immediately because you're suddenly thrust into this process with your medical team.
Did you, when you found out, what was the first thought that you thought in relation to the family? Because you had to break this to the kids.
Yeah.
You got 3 kids.
I've
They
got
were all
3
quite
kids.
young at the time.
That's right. Yeah, and at the time, I think I had one of my daughters was going to be sitting her A levels that year, and the other one was going to be sitting her GCSEs that year. So it was just, to start off with, I thought, well, okay, let's see what can I get away with? What can I? I just wanted their lives to be unaffected by this. I didn't want,
normal.
Yeah, to be normal, normalise their, the kids don't do illness. They've got the world, their lives ahead of them. The world is their oyster and all the rest of it. The last thing what they want to sort of worry about is their old man being sick or something. So yeah, so for a while.
But that's quite. I mean, you did that. It's a really. You're trying to protect them by not telling them, really.
Yeah,
you're thinking.
It's a very good point.
You're thinking, I don't want you to spoil your A levels and your GCSEs because whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But you guys you're going to keep doing what you do going forward, and I don't want this to be a stumbling block for you.
Absolutely. And as I say, I felt fine. I actually felt fine. I mean, there was nothing wrong with me. No, nothing wrong with me. So it was almost it was probably easier for me, and perhaps a lot of that was me sort of having to deal with the questions and the fears and the anxiety that might have sort of created in the kids. And yeah, as obviously once I went into surgery and yeah, obviously the effects of that surgery were pretty apparent. My kids did react, obviously, with concern, with fear, with anxiety, with, are they going to lose their dad? Yeah. So, but it was a natural response. But I guess by not telling them up front, it probably allowed me to deal with things myself in my own head, and not have to worry about what other people, exactly, and helping them cope with this.
It was really interesting because I remember at the time you were more concerned about everyone else, and you were incredibly positive. We were talking about our kind of crappy this and that's happened, which is really in comparison is like nothing. And you were kind of, it's all good. It's all well, and you were really positive, and your mindset was. It's almost like you almost transformed your mindset and the way you thought about things. The way you suddenly said, "Okay, this is shit. This stuff, and I'm going to deal with it. And there's 2 ways I can deal with it." Talk us through that. What made you?
I think a lot of it comes back to at the time. I'm married. I've got 3 kids. You're the breadwinner. You've got that You've got that financial responsibility. You've got that responsibility as a parent. You've got that responsibility as a husband. You've got to provide love and care across the board. I've got parents as well who are both alive. And you want to kind of manage their kind of fears as well about their son and his illness as well. So yeah, you got to sort of stand up. I could be very positive because it was a complete unknown. I think that's the thing. It was a total unknown. No one prepares you for illness. No one prepares you for that, and I think that's a good thing that we don't, as human beings, assume that we're going to be sick and this is your sickness plan. This is your recovery plan. You don't have to do things like that. So it actually made it very easy for me in my circumstances to be strong, be upright, and carry on as normal, really.
So now you've gone through that. So you've had your second run through now, and most recent time throughout lockdown, the last few months you've been going to hospital again, haven't you?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, after the surgery in 2017, basically you end up going through a sort of continual screening process, and essentially it's a 10-year process of screening to show that you've got the all clear. So I guess you're in remission, I suppose is the word that's used. Unfortunately, 3 years in, my screening revealed that my levels associated with the prostate cancer were starting to go up again, and that's obviously quite a surprise when you haven't got a prostate and suddenly your sort of like prostate sort of antigen levels start rising again. So yeah, that led to more scans. Yeah, PET scans and all sorts of things at the start of this year. Actually, just before lockdown started, so January, February, I went through a load more sort of tests and everything. And basically, what the doctors identified was that they'd found some more sort of cancer hotspots, I suppose, throughout my abdomen, and they were probably there from before, but they were just so tiny they weren't actually spotted, but they started to flare up. So something had to be done about it. So basically, the treatment plan then was to give me a dose of chemotherapy and also a load of radiotherapy as well to supplement that. And yeah, chemotherapy was given because they wanted to make sure it was nowhere else in my body, it hadn't spread anywhere else. And the radiotherapy is targeted, so that would target the hotspots in my abdomen.
So when they do this, Joe, I mean, what do they do when you go to hospital? And for people like me who don't know anything about this, you go into a room. Do you go into a machine, or how does it work?
Absolutely, yeah. It really is. You're getting into that kind of realms of science fiction. Sometimes we don't see this sort of equipment on a day-to-day basis. You might go to your dentist, you might go to your GP every now and again, but they might get a stethoscope out, or I don't know, a little drill to drill your teeth or something. But you end up sort of into in these sort of radiotherapy and these sort of scanning centres, and it is quite literally something out of sci-fi. You're put into machines. You're injected with all sorts of radioactive isotopes or something, which these machines will pick up on. I mean, I think if you're claustrophobic, God help you. But but yeah, you get put into machines, and they slice you up, they cut you up, I suppose, in terms of imagery, and they can have a very good look at what's going on inside you. So yeah, number of different.
And is it all kind of like X-rays and things when you're in there?
Yeah, X-rays, PET scans, MRIs, which actually enable the doctors to sort of build up a very good sort of three-dimensional view of what's going on inside you, and it can detect the sort of smallest levels of sort of cancer cells and things like that. So yeah, I think probably worth saying. I mean, even since 2017, things have moved on so much, and the progress that's been made in 3 years has been remarkable. So yeah, no, that was that basically did say, yeah. Even though again I felt absolutely normal, I was still sick inside, and something very quickly had to be done to bring that under control as well.
And did you, when going through all of this, did you think about kind of life in general? Like, did it start becoming those big questions about what is this all about? Why am I here? What happens next? Is it those kind of questions that come through your mind? Do you suddenly become more spiritual? Do you suddenly become rationalist? Do you start thinking, when I was talking earlier with you about if every proton and atom is moving and vibrating, and we're all matter and we're all from the solar system, do you start thinking on a level of, well, look, it's like the Karl Marx line, all that's solid melts into air, we're particles, and that you're going back to some kind of like particle state? Is it that level, or is it religion, or what?
It's interesting. When you first get diagnosed or get told something's not right, my only reaction, or the only thing I had time to think, was, why me? It's anger. It's like, I've been a good person. I've done the right things in life. I've looked after myself. I've exercised. I've not overdone it on any level. drugs, alcohol, or anything. Um, but then you get caught up in that process again that I mentioned, and I think you don't have time to really dwell on it. But the time at which you can then think is when everything grinds to a halt, everything stops, and you fall out of the process, or the process ends for you. I mean, the radiotherapy I had to have, basically I was in hospital every day for 2 months, and that was a real chore, I must admit. And you really have no time to think about it. But when it came to an end at the start of September this year, and it's only then that it all starts. Your mind, your thinking processes, your thoughts start kicking in. And I think I can honestly say, even after the first surgery I had in 2017, I think I still had the attitude, yeah, it's all over now. I'm going to be fine, back to normal. I'm going to be the same person I was, before it all started. It almost took the second issue early this year for me to really start thinking, oh my God, our lives are fragile. I don't think I've looked at it in a spiritual way. I think for me, spiritualism looks at how you live your life and the afterlife. Maybe I think I'm probably really oversimplified it, but your afterlife is determined by how you live your life today. I don't think I've even got that far yet. I think what I've woken up and realised is that for 3 years I was still sick and I didn't make any changes to my life. I think for me, the second round has really made me think, I've got to change. I've got to do things differently. I think just this week, in fact, I think I had one of these light bulb moments, and I thought, people talk about time running out, people running out of time. It's not time that we're running out of; it's life that we're running out of. And I think it's a much higher priority and importance than time. Time is there for everyone. Your life is there only for you. You can't waste it. And just going through the motions, I think sometimes it's all very easy and far too easy just to go through the motions every day, and I think we're satisfied just by that.
So when you're looking at, it's an interesting point, you're looking at the finite quality of life and how we use life and how perhaps we behave as though we think it's going to go on forever by not utilizing it, not making the best of it. And it's really easy, when you're doing a job, when you're going to work, when you come home and there's things to do, there's bills to pay, there's all of that, and you're kind of in the machine of living but not really living. It's kind of existing, and that existence is when you get a kind of a situation like this, where you look at that existence and you kind of think, is that the kind of existence I wanted? Is that what I'm going to leave behind? It's a bit like those questions that people always have when they say, if tomorrow was the last day of your life, what would you do? And inevitably, most people say, I would do just what I'm doing. And why is that? It's half the time it's because, well, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
But then I think what you're saying is that, okay, you can be familiar with things, but there are some things that you want to be challenged with, maybe, because you think, I'm going to do that. And I think this is the question with a lot of people who talk about retirement. They kind of think, I'm going to get to this age when I'm 65 or something, and then I'm going to do all the things I want to do. Except they spent so much time working and then coming home and pretty much having their dinner and going to bed.
Yeah.
They don't actually develop any habits or hobbies or a life or interests outside. And then by the time they get to that stage, you hear, poor John, he's no longer with us. Why is that? Well, he died shortly after retiring.
Yeah.
It's because they have nothing to live for.
Yeah.
And I think that something to live for, when you have a jolt of reality check, as you've gone through you think, okay, what are those things? I'm not going to wait for them to happen. I'm going to make them happen, which is along the lines of your bike, really. You took action. You talked about it on a Wednesday. It's like a Craig David song. You talked about your bike on a Wednesday. You started looking for it on a Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, you bought it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
What are you planning? What are the next steps for you, Joe?
Well, I think you're right. We've made a home here in London. We live in North London, and we sort of picked that spot because of the schools and all the rest of it, all the normal stuff that I'm sure millions of parents out there do. They sort of live somewhere where the schools are good, and which has been great for the kids. I mean, they've thrived. They've been fantastic. But yeah, they are now leaving home. We've certainly got two that have left home now, and only my son to go really. And perhaps in years gone by, you might have just accepted it as that. That's your lot. You'll just get old living where you live and just potter around doing what older people do when the kids have left home. But for me, I'm of the opinion now. Right, once they've headed off, left home, I'm going to head off. I don't, whether it's, go and live somewhere in the middle of Europe, maybe. Well, as you say, there may be some challenges there in the near future, but just go and live somewhere where you've got the mountains, you've got the beaches, you can go, you can have those adventures. I mean, the other thing I did this summer was go out and buy a kayak. Something I've been going on about, thought about for a very long time. And yeah, we've been out there on rivers, at the sea, the south coast, wherever we've been going, we've been with kayak, and going up and down rivers. It's the kind of I suppose it's now thinking about what do I enjoy? What do I enjoy doing with my partner, my wife? What does she enjoy doing? What can we do together? We don't have to entertain the kids anymore. Let's do these things now because these are physical things. They take physical effort. There's no point, sort of sitting on your backside for the next sort of 5 or 10 years, waiting for the right moment for these sorts of things. So it's like, yeah, move on, get up there, get out there, start doing stuff and stop worrying about, what the kids are going to have for their dinner if you're not home in time or something, I'm sure they'll survive.
I mean, it's great. It's almost like a second awakening, I suppose, a second chance for you. And I guess for all of us really looking at this, I think this pandemic has probably given a lot of people, who are not particularly going through anything other than what everyone's going through, being locked up indoors, but a chance to reflect on what they're doing with their lives, as you're indoors. We're not doing the things we did so much before, and I appreciate a lot of businesses are going out of business, but the restaurants are not being used, the cinemas are not being used. We hear about all these kind of places closing down, but people are also staying at home and they're spending a bit of time with their families, and they're finding what it is they enjoy, to do, and what they'd like to do. And actually, I've started to hear from some people they're making plans for when they are allowed to go back out again and do these kind of things. Now, like you said, you've been traveling a little bit with your bike, and you've actually recently bought a van as well, which is quite an interesting thing.
That was another one of those recent
decisions. It's like the
decisions.
A-team van.
An A-team van, yeah, exactly. You know what? We soon realised we've had cars, we've driven cars all my life, really, and it was really again my wife who'd sort of like sown this seed about the fact that, look, if you want real adventures and you want to move bikes and kayaks and tents and all sorts of things around, no matter how big your car is, it's not an easy ask. So yeah, we just in fact last week, got rid of the car and got a van. We've got a van now, and it's just the start of. It's that tool. It's a tool that's going to enable me to do some of the things perhaps I should have done over the last 20 years, probably. But I can start doing those now, and yeah, it's breaking out, and it's sort of saying, look, that's the vehicle for me. And yeah, I suppose the thing about lockdown and COVID is it really highlights just again how we hang by threads. Our freedom, our liberties have disappeared. Every day you look at what we used to do, or think about what we used to do, the normality of going to the pub, the restaurants, going on holiday, going to concerts, going to music festivals, and suddenly no one's got any idea when that's going to happen again. And
things we took for granted, right?
Things we took for granted. So, it kind of makes me think, how much of those years did I waste? Thinking, I'll go to that music festival next year, I'll do that driving holiday around Europe next year, or I'll do that trip around South America on motorbikes next year. Yeah, well, next year's come and we can't do anything anymore. Yeah. So you're sort of like, we've got to be hopeful and positive that, look, life can get back to normal so that we can start doing these things. And I hope it will encourage people to think, that trip they wanted to do of a lifetime, it's not a trip of a lifetime. It's a trip you just need to do. You don't need to be old and retired, or just do it because you just don't know what's around the corner.
And that's probably your message, right? Just do it. Like just the Nike commercial.
It is. I wish we'd listened to Nike years ago. Just do it. And you don't need a kick up the backside or a shock to the system. You just need to realise, and that life is finite, we're only here. We only have a short-term tendency.
Yeah. And for anybody who is going through a similar thing now, or they're finding out, should they get this, what would be your advice to them?
I would say try not to be fearful. I think fear will take away your energy. It will take away your creativity. You've got to keep your mind focused on so many things that I'm amazed at that the capacity of somebody, of oneself, when you're put into these awful situations, and how you can keep going. But you've got to have a focus. You've got to have a way forward. You've got to have some sort of aim and target to look forward to. So I would say to people, look, don't worry about the fear. It is what it is. Don't be surprised. Don't be shocked. Yes, you're going to go through temporary ups and downs, so certainly downs and fears, but you've got to overcome those and look forward and look at what lies ahead, because, as I say, time goes on, but life runs out, and there's no point dwelling in doom and gloom and negativity. You've got to look forwards.
Brilliant. Joe, I think that was a terrific bit of advice. Thanks for that. So I think look forward. Things will, shit happens, and you're dealing with it, and use the time that you have with passion. Don't put it off. Don't keep putting things off.
Sure.
I think was one of the things you were saying.
Sure.
And give yourself the luxury. It's not just about everybody else, but give yourself the time to honour yourself.
Absolutely. Never forget, you are a person as well. You're a human being as well. You've got needs as well.
Yeah.
Never neglect those.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Paul. That's been brilliant.
All right. Good man.
Cheers.